Hey there. Let me give myself a little bit more light. Uh-oh, got rid of the light, didn't I? Look at that. There you go. Give myself a little bit more light. Hello there, everybody. Adjusting my camera. Yes, you read it. Voting is my black job. Yes, it is, and I take my black job very, very seriously. I'm gonna sit back a little bit. Um, Here you go. Hi, everybody. My name is Suzette Viernon. Welcome to my channel where I am redefining my 60s on my own terms. And part of that redefinition is in how I look at politics and approach politics. As you know, if you've been joining me over the past several episodes, my focus has mainly been this 2024 presidential election, as well as some down ballot elections that are taking place simultaneously. Also, if you have been following me for a while, you know that I have been focused on Agenda 47. And I decided to focus on Agenda 47 after former President Trump distanced himself from Project 2025 and said that Agenda 47 on his website was really his real agenda. While it is very questionable, and I am not going to lie, I don't believe that he doesn't know anything about Project 2025. There are too many people that he has been linked with that have been part of his administration, that he's done business with, that he's supported, that he has been seen with, and even some video footage of claims he's made that, that we have a plan that we're drawing up and it's going to be a great plan and you're going to hear about it in the future, which alludes to Project 2025. The way I like to put it is if Agenda 47 is his agenda, then Project 2025 is the how-to, the handbook to bring his vision for this country to fruition. So to me, it's just hand in glove. And there are so many different things that have taken place already that come right out of the Project 2025 playbook, like the rolling back of Roe v. Wade, the way the Supreme Court has been stacked with Republican, very, very right-leaning, valued judges in the Supreme Court, putting specific people in strategic places when it comes to our voting, and it is very suppressing what they're planning on doing. The whole credentialing piece, going above and beyond, causing there to be fear and suspicion, all these things to suppress any votes that don't align with his vision of winning. So I stand on the side, and I truly believe that if Agenda 47 is his agenda, then Project 2025 is most definitely the plan on how to bring it to fruition. Today's focus is going to be on welfare and Social Security. And honestly, when I first saw the words welfare, I immediately thought about people on government assistance, AKA welfare. But then I wanted to kind of get a better understanding of why USA Today gave this its own section. And it's not so much dealing with government assistance like food stamps and that kind of thing. But it's dealing more with welfare as far as safety and access to the American people. It is no secret that Donald Trump feels like a lot of the access that Americans deserve is being interloped by the migrant invasion, he calls it, or the crisis at the border. A lot of illegal immigrants. And I say a lot because that's the way he's been referring to it. The data and statistics do not support the exorbitant numbers that he's putting out. But both sides agree that there needs to be some reform at the border. He looks at that as a central part of the welfare of American citizens. Of course, I've gone into education. His education leans more toward a Christian values type of system, like putting prayer back in the schools, those kinds of things, where it's very pro evangelical, the evangelical Christian swath of people with that ideology. It can be argued because all evangelicals don't share the same views about this, but a lot of the right-wing evangelicals, at least the ones that seem to be supporting Trump, favor making Christianity the beacon, the shining star, and that ideology infiltrating everything from abortion to quote unquote traditional families, the man, woman with the, biologically men and women, the way they were born, being the traditional family, that marriage should be between a man and a woman. Those are all basically original Christian values. Different from my previous episodes, I am not going to read everything from Agenda 47 because the welfare of its citizens is sprinkled in every page of this 16-page document. And it would take me forever to read the whole document. I invite you to do so. I will have the links in my description where you can actually read it. But what I will say that stands out is a difference between the vision that former President Trump has for this country and the vision that Vice President Kamala Harris has for this country. I want to go back to the whole thing about welfare. And I want to look at welfare from the standpoint of supporting its citizens, making America one where all the citizens in this great, great country have the access that they need to be able to thrive. Part of that is things being equitable, things being accessible, taking into account the needs of all of its citizens, not just a few. And this is where I feel like when it comes to the welfare of this country, there is a stark difference in Donald Trump's ideology and Kamala Harris's, right? Donald Trump's policies, borrowing from how he was as president and also what he has said in interviews, in rallies, and so forth, favors the wealthy. Tax breaks to the wealthy. And in the previous episode, I made a strong case as to why doing this does not have a trickle-down effect, where if the wealthy are thriving, then that means it's going to trickle down to the middle class and the lower class. It has not been the case. It has not been the case. Quite the contrary. Oftentimes, the middle class has to take up the brunt of the consequences when the wealthy gets tax breaks, and also Trump's presidency wanted deregulation when it came to how businesses operated. And so I wanted to look at the consequences of deregulation. So I just kind of looked it up. I wanted to see, like, what are the consequences of deregulation? Okay, let's see if I can find that. Because I was looking here. Let's see if I got my fact checking consequences. I had it out. Let's see if I can find it. What? Okay. Okay, here we go. I want to look at some of the consequences of deregulation. And I went to investopedia.com and looking at what it is and what some of the consequences are. Okay, I'm going to put the link to this in my description. It says the term deregulation refers to the reduction or elimination of government power in a particular industry. Deregulation is usually enacted by government bodies to create more competition within an industry. The struggle between proponents of regulation and those of government non-intervention has shifted market conditions. Some of the industries that have been deregulated in the United States include trucking, railroad, airline, and finance. Okay? Now, while removing regulations allows businesses to operate more freely and can stimulate the economy, critics suggest that deregulation can lead to monopolies and hurt consumers. And one of those ways where it did hurt consumers was the Great Recession. And the Great Recession occurred during the Obama years. The spree of deregulation came to a grinding halt following the subprime mortgage crisis of 2007 and the financial crash of 2007 through 2008, most notably with the passage of the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act of 2010, which restricted subprime mortgage lending and derivatives trading. Okay. And we all, at least those that I'm mostly speaking to, which are, seniors who are age 60 and above, we were here during the Great Recession, where post the war, the 9/11 and the war and all that, our country was in bad shape. And when Obama took office, he was confronting a recession the likes that had not been seen in many, many, many years. So he had to do some things to stabilize several different financial industries so that it would not cause further hemorrhage and further economic decline. And I said in previous episodes that though Donald Trump has taken credit for the economic growth that was already beginning to happen before the end of the Obama years, his mishandling of COVID caused the country to go through another crash, another time of uncertainty, and it just ricocheted through all for the financial sector, the healthcare sector, jobs, everything suffered because of COVID, which he didn't cause. However, the way it was handled put our country in great risk. So I think all this speaks to the welfare of the citizens because we want a president who is able to critically think through the consequences of his actions and look at or her actions and look at it within the context of where we are. One thing I have learned being an adult is that what may work in one season may not necessarily work in another. And you have to be able to determine, is this the right time for this? Or is it not the right time for this? Right? And while it is true that former President Trump wanted to focus on the economy, COVID was a healthcare crisis with people dying in droves. People were just dying at proportions that were even more than the casualties of war. I think the statistics said over 400,000, and then some said over 1 million over the course of things before President Biden started putting some things in place and the vaccines started being, mass produced and people were able to get them for free and different things started happening along with the mask mandate, which Trump criticized. But these things together helped to stabilize things so that the economy could recover. It could not thrive during COVID. And some of the decisions that President Trump made only contributed to more stress and caused even more of division, caused more division that I think actually caused violent crime to be at its highest while he was president. All these things speak to the welfare of all of America's citizens. Now, he has blamed again the crisis at the border as one of the key contributing factors to the lack of security and safety and jobs. So basically, he's saying that the immigrants are making it hard for us to thrive. They're making it hard for all of America's citizens to have access. And while both sides again agree that there needs to be reform at the border, very key is, again, there was a bipartisan agreement. From what I understand, one of the most robust that both sides agreed to in order to really be a solution, or at least start the ball rolling in dealing with immigration in a comprehensive, yet humane, very decisive, yet humane way. But President Trump told some of his Republicans to, to back away from it. So again, I ask you, at the heart of Trump's approach, at the heart of what he is promising, does his behavior align with it? Have his decisions really aligned with it? Or has he just merely taken credit for the good decisions of administrations that preceded him? And I've presented a strong case because I've gone through factcheck.org. I've looked at politifact.com. I've read his agenda, and I've made a strong case for how his decisions have been up and down. The only decision that it seems like he has been really consistent in is giving tax breaks to his wealthy friends and wanting to reform immigration, but not necessarily in a humane way. What his policies suggest and his approach suggests is that children will be separated from their parents. I want you to think about the implications of that. Even in cities that show support, what do we call them? Sanctuary cities, whose economy and way of living hinges on the immigrants that are an integral part of that community and that society. Now, I want you to think about this. If there are illegal immigrants throughout the United States that have been here for a while, they've paid taxes, they have provided or have worked certain jobs, and I would dare say a lot of the jobs they work are jobs that other citizens don't really want. Okay, and then they have children who were born in this country that know nothing of any other life. Some of their children don't even speak their native language. All they know is English. And if you did a mass deportation without taking these things into consideration, isn't it very, very possible that it could result in economic collapse and a humanitarian crisis? When you don't know how things are inextricably linked, you can stop one thing and cause a catastrophic collapse because you haven't taken the time. You just want to get the job done, but you haven't taken the time to see how all these things are interconnected. The difference with what Kamala Harris proposes when it comes to immigration is taking a real look at the implications and with precision, being very precise in doing it in a way that's not going to cause collapses that ricochet throughout America. That it doesn't end up putting people back in cages all over again. That it doesn't end up. Because listen, one of the things that is very, very important, I think, when it comes to the role of a president, is not only how it treats its citizens and their welfare, but also what message and image they send out to the world, which is also a part of protecting its people. It's also very, so our alliances with our allies is very, very important. President, soon to be President Kamala Harris, puts a very, very high premium on strengthening our bonds and our alliances with our allies. While on the other hand, Trump seems to be more geared toward strengthening his bonds with dictators. You've heard it. If you've watched television at all, you've heard what he said about Putin, where he basically just really shun or threw shade at our agencies and said that Putin seemed like the more credible than even our agencies. So, and then talking about a love letter he got from Kim Jong-un. He seems to get all, you know, like really like, oh, like he just gets euphoric when he seems to be around them. When he speaks of them, it's with adoration. It's with adoration. So that definitely has an effect on our welfare. It has an effect on our welfare. And because I believe character and integrity matters, if you're playing footsie with dictators, it makes me wonder, what did you have to sacrifice? What did you have to sell? What parts of America did you sell out to get their loyalties? And you watched former President Trump just like I have. He feels like when things are going his way, America's a wonderful place. The news is great. People who are nice to him, who say nice things to him, who come at him in the way that he feels like just feeds his ego, then they're wonderful people. But if they challenge him, they're nasty. But isn't it part of being a leader to be able to handle being challenged without losing your cool, without gaslighting, without humiliating, without guilting people who are doing their job? Because I happen to believe that our leaders should be held accountable for what they say, for what they do, for how they handle their responsibilities and their power. Because the American people, all of America, in deciding whether they want to elect this person to be to the highest office in the land, they have a right to ask the hard questions. They have a right to get answers without it going off into creating stuff that's a fact-checking nightmare. Creating stuff that is mostly lies, straight up lies, or pants on fire, where it's like liar, liar, pants on fire. You want to believe that your elected officials are trustworthy and that they will, with humility and integrity, serve the needs of all their constituents. Something else that I looked at, because another part of former president's agenda seems to speak to tariffs, putting tariffs on foreign traded products, right? And so I wanted to see what can happen to consumers, to regular middle class Americans as a result of tariffs, okay? Tariffs on imports, on foreign produced goods, right? And it says, I researched it and Googled consequences of tariffs on foreign made goods. Higher prices. Tariffs make imported goods more expensive, which can lead to higher prices for consumers and businesses. Manufacturers may also pass the increased cost on to consumers if they rely on imported components in their production. So that's a potential consequence. Another potential consequence, tariffs can reduce the availability of goods and services, which can lead to lower income and employment, right? Another consequence can be shortages. Tariffs can discourage countries from exporting to each other, which can lead to shortages. Economic impact. Tariffs can negatively impact the economy by reducing competition among manufacturers and short supplying products. Okay, a 2024 study found that broad tariffs could increase the inflation rate by about 3/4 of a percentage point. Research from 2014 also found that tariff increases can lead to lower domestic output and productivity, as well as higher unemployment and inequality. Okay? Other consequences, trade wars. So that also can affect the welfare of citizens, right? So another thing that I looked at was when it came to education. Because again, Trump's policies seem to favor one sect of the electorate, white evangelicals, right? And the wealthy. In education, he's talking about classic liberal arts education. And liberal arts is different from learning a trade, right? So yes, reading, writing, and arithmetic are important. But as I have talked about extensively in my very first episode on education, is it disenfranchises the history and the contribution of the African American populace in this country. Because while history is included in education, a certain set of people want to determine what qualifies as American history and what does not. And because Black people have been very critical to American history, to cherry pick our history to what makes you feel good and to tell it your way takes away the right and the agency of a significant block of this populace and the contributions that this populace has made to American history. While I agree that things need to be shared with our children with wisdom and age appropriateness, you still don't want to rewrite history, or even like what was happening in the state of Georgia, where legislators wanted to remove AP African American Studies as an elective. So this whole critical race theory thing, DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, this whole DEI rhetoric and affirmative action is all an attack on a certain population of people, brown and Black people, that make up a significant part of the electorate. So this speaks to the underlying motivator for Trump's policies, even the ones that sound good. The underwriting belief and underwriting ideology is one that has been called white nationalism. So for those of you that don't know what white nationalism is, let's look at it. I went to Vox.com. It's entitled Trump, White Nationalism, Supremacy, Miller, Bannon, Immigration. And I'm going to read some of it to you. President or former President Donald Trump has a symbiotic relationship with white nationalists. It's been a constant in nearly every element of his presidency. The white nationalist violence in the 2017 Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, was followed by a pronouncement that there were, quote, some very fine people on both sides, end quote. The election of Congress's most diverse class in 2018 ever was met with tweets demonizing women progressives of color, telling them to, quote, go back, end quote, to the, quote, crime-infested places from which they came, end quote. Even COVID-19, a disease spun out of the animal kingdom, has been cast as a foreign foe that was at best the fault of, and at worst created by, non-white people, with the president insisting on using racist language around it. And Trump arguably launched his political career by appearing on shows like Fox News' The O'Reilly Factor in 2011 to speculate that, quote, maybe President Barack Obama's birth certificate, quote, says he is a Muslim, end quote. I'll keep reading. As president, Trump energizes white nationalists on two levels. with his rhetoric and through his staffing and policy choices. In turn, many have given him their support. In doing so, Trump has given an overt platform to white nationalists in a way that is unprecedented in the modern political era. The issue isn't just Trump's rhetoric. His administration's immigration policy has led to the separation of families. I spoke to that a little earlier. To children facing the risk of exposure to diseases like COVID-19 in detention facilities, and to the deaths of immigrants seeking asylum in the US. He's even confused what asylum meant, saying that people with mental health issues are escaping from insane asylums. He doesn't even understand the context with which asylum is used, which is obvious in the way he refers to it and talks about it. His criminal justice policy has led to a more punitive criminal justice system and to the weakening of police oversight, all of which disproportionately affect communities of color. And if you look sprinkled throughout Agenda 47, you can see nods and remnants of it. He refers to wokeism. Well, where did the term woke originate? It originated from the Black community, which meant be alert, be awake, don't be fooled, understand prejudice and bigotry. Being woke is being awake, not being gaslighted, calling a thing. Stay woke. Don't fall for the okie doke. That's what woke truly means. There is nothing inherently wrong about being woke. However, Trump and those that support him have weaponized what did not need to be weaponized. What does that say to you? What is it a nod to? This very thing. This very thing. Don't forget about the Central Park Five, where Trump wanted them to have the death penalty, even though DNA evidence exonerated them. Right? It speaks to errors in judgment, and it speaks to what truly motivates him and what sector of people he would really be serving. As I've said before, you don't have to be a proponent of abortion. You can just choose not to get one. But when you try to make it such that you give states the right to ban it, then what you do is you take away the rights of a whole sector of people, of women, to make decisions about their body, therefore threatening their welfare, their sense of safety, and their access to much needed medical treatment. So again, I'm not going to read this. I'm not going to read all 16 pages of Agenda 47. I want to deal with the welfare of its citizens. Equality is important. Freedoms are important. Rights are important. Rights that benefit and that support all of its citizens. Government is supposed to do that. Now, if you have personal values, then live those values. What I found very interesting was in Agenda 47, it talks about upholding the rights of people to practice their religion and their faith. But then they talk about coming against anti-Christian observances. If that doesn't tell you that one sector of people is trying to dictate the rights of others, I don't know what does. Out of one side of your mouth, you're saying you're protecting everybody's rights to religion, but on the other side of your mouth is you're talking about exposing and repudiating and coming against anti-Christian. Well, everybody in this country isn't Christian. So when you're saying I'm heralding Christian values, and they're specific Christian values because all Christians are not a monolith, but you're upholding a certain sector of people's values, namely white nationalists, white evangelicals, and using their definition as the measure, as what infuses your policies, even to the point of wanting to put these key people who share this very stilted and very un-American view, put them in strategic places so that no one that challenges you has any type of has no platform. That you'll be surrounded only by people that share the way you and those that support you see this, thereby erasing the rights and freedoms of probably pretty close to the majority of Americans. One sector of people. You want to make sure that he wants to make sure that the wealthy get wealthy, deregulation, not having checks and balances, let them go. Let them do it the way they want to do it. Well, guess what? Deregulation was a major contributor to the Great Recession that former President Obama had to pull us out of, or at least make some strategic and very hard decisions so that there would not be a complete collapse. And Trump is talking about bringing that back again. That's not going to help the welfare of Americans. It's not going to help the middle class. Now, one thing that I will read is when he's talking about Social Security, because there is a specific chapter where he deals with that. Okay, in chapter 4, number 3, affordable health care. He says health care and prescription drug costs are out of control. Republicans will increase transparency, promote choice and competition, and expand access to new affordable health care and prescription drug options. New, okay? We will protect Medicare and ensure seniors receive the care they need without being burdened by excessive costs. Okay, he says that when it comes to social Medicare. Okay, let's see what else he's talking about when it comes to seniors. Okay, immigrants. There was a section where he spoke specifically, protect seniors, chapter 6. And I think I read this in previous episodes, but I also think it deals with Social Security. Okay. I'm trying to see if he speaks specifically to Social Security. He does. Chapter 6, number 1, protect Social Security. Social Security is a lifeline for millions of retirees. Yet corrupt politicians have robbed Social Security to fund their pet projects. Republicans will restore economic stability to ensure the long-term sustainability of Social Security. I already did a fact check that disproved that the Democrats in office robbed Social Security. That's just not true. It's just not true. Social Security is the money of those who have contributed into that, namely people who work traditional jobs. Your W-2 has a line item called Med and SS. That's Social Security and Medicare. Both of these are accounts that are paid into. It's your money. It's your money, okay? So it's your money. It's your money. So this claim that Republicans are going to protect it in a way that Democrats are not is ludicrous because it's your money. And as long as that money is being taken out of your paycheck, or if you are a self-owned business, as long as you're having to pay self-employment taxes, which is basically the same thing, then this is your money. This is your money. So he's not protecting it more than anyone else, okay? He does talk about strengthening Medicare. I read that already. Okay, he talks about chronic disease prevention, economic foundations for supporting seniors. I know housing has been one of the tenets of Kamala Harris's policy, where she has some plans. She has an actual plan for lowering housing costs and making housing more affordable, lowering rents, making them more affordable. So she has an actual plan. Trump claims to do some similar things as far as supporting seniors, taking care of them, making sure that they have the resources that they need. But he hasn't said how he plans on doing that, though. And if the overarching thread that runs through everything that he's proposing, his overarching credo, his overarching approach is making sure that his wealthy friends benefit without deregulation so they can kind of do what they want to do, how they want to do it. And making sure that, we'll talk about tariffs. I've already talked to you about how that affects consumers, right? I've already talked to you about how these entities get affected. So I'm wondering with what he's proposing, how he plans on making sure that all seniors, even seniors that do not subscribe to Christian values, even seniors of a different culture than the original white nationalist driven culture, white male patriarchal driven culture, how that's going to look out for the interests of all seniors. Even seniors who are not Republicans, seniors who don't have conservative values, seniors who are of different ethnicities, of different cultures. Is he going to be fair across the board? Or will these seniors run up against the same issues? The deregulation, the defunding of anything that is not in alignment with far right leaning conservative values, right? If it doesn't align with that, Like I said, read his agenda yourself. It's sprinkled throughout all of it. And you have to ask yourself, is this truly looking out for my welfare? Think about who you are. Are you a Black or brown person? Are you in a demographic group that COVID affected more than any other? Are you in a right? Are the demographics in your favor? Or who was affected disproportionately? What groups of people are not as represented as others? In government, in education, in all these other agencies. Do they look like the American population? Or is there one race that's reflected more than others? Is there one group of people that are getting a better shake than others? What if your child wants to go to an HBCU where African American studies is a hallmark, where critical race theory is a hallmark? Because you cannot have African American studies without critical race theory. It's implied, it's interspersed into the whole Black experience, the whole Black history. So, what happens when the government decides that HBCUs are too radical, HBCUs are too woke, HBCUs are too progressive, they're too liberal? What happens then? See, I want you to think about. I know some people look at Trump as a strong man who's giving the middle finger to the establishment. But are you shooting yourself in the foot? Will you vote for him and regret it later? Because you don't realize that a lot of the freedoms and rights that you've taken for granted will be rolled back under his administration. I need you to think about it. Who's going to benefit the most? Who's going to benefit the most? Whose values are more in line with your values? Isn't part of the welfare of this country our mental and emotional health? Who keeps drama going all the time, nonstop, always offended? Who is always offended? I'm going to tell you, since the day Trump that came down that escalator, it has just been one offense, one conspiracy theory after another. It's just been one problem after another, one issue after another. Gaslighting and poking fun, and discrediting. It has been that non-stop. Even when he was in office, he was still doing it. He was the president of the United States and he was still doing it. You would have thought with him winning, he would have been all right. But no, it seems like it's his nature to find fault with anything that is not in complete alignment with what he believes. And anybody who has children, anybody who's in a relationship with anybody understands you're not going to agree on every single thing. Do you throw that person away? Do you shame them? Just because they have a different perspective, different life experience, do you do that and you claim to be the president of all Americans? So I don't know about you all listening, but I want someone who makes wise judgments to have the nuclear codes. I don't want someone given to impulse. I don't want someone who's easily offended. I don't want someone that when they get tired of answering a question or don't know the answer to a question, try to bully and shame the asker as if there was something wrong with them asking. Mm-mm. I don't want someone that does that. I don't want someone that's us against them. I don't want someone that makes it a mental health challenge to everybody because he just won't stop. He just won't stop. And he has said what he plans to do his first 100 days in office. He said it. And I don't feel like it reflects the welfare of all people. Some, but not all. And to put those people in positions to lord over the rest of us, if that's not dictatorship, I don't know what is. When you're trying to force a population to be in alignment with a specific ideology, and they have to suffer the repercussions of not aligning to the point that their very lifestyle, their very abilities to provide for their families and to get a fair shake in this country, that's threatened. Not the America. That's not consistent with American values. That's not consistent with democratic values. When freedoms and rights are rolled back, when all you have to do is just not. If you don't want to get an abortion, don't get one. But to tie the hands of doctors so that they cannot do what they need to do for their patients, mm-mm. That's wrong. That is wrong. And so, excuse me, if you're undecided still, if you're independent and you still don't have enough information, you're waiting for the news interview, the one-on-one interview, you're waiting for the debate, then fine. But I implore you to open your eyes. Look at the whole panoramic scope of the consequences to your welfare, your well-being, your ability to get access. When one group of people hold all the power and force another group of people to submit to it, else you don't get the rights and privileges of others. You cannot be pro-family if you don't honor families. No, you're only pro man, woman, and only give credence to what a birth certificate says. Excuse me. So that's the only family? What about blended families? What about families, same-sex parents that have adopted children out of the foster care system that nobody else wanted? Are they not a family? What about women who are barren, who can't have children? She and her husband, are they not a family? If you say that you're pro family, then you are pro family and support the family structures that are trying to love and help and support. That's my belief. Again, I will put links to what I've referenced. Oh. I did want to fact check a couple of things before I go. I did want to fact check a couple of things. One of the things that has been claimed that is not true is that illegal immigrants get both Social Security numbers and Social Security retirement benefits. That is false. They don't. They don't. And former President Donald Trump has repeated several lies when it has come to Social Security. Several. If I look at fact check, look at the Social Security archives. And I'm just going to throw out a couple, just a couple, just a couple. Let's see, post misrepresenting immigrants' eligibility for Social Security numbers and benefits. This is dated April 26th, 2024. This is immigrants who are lawfully living or authorized to work in the U.S. are eligible for a Social Security number, and in some cases, Social Security benefits. But viral posts make the false claim that illegal immigrants can receive Social Security numbers and retirement benefits, and they confuse two programs managed by the Social Security Administration. Let's see what more. Okay, they said that's false. Let me connect to my battery. Connecting. Yeah, it was an April 12th Facebook post that says illegal immigrants get both Social Security numbers and Social Security benefits. This massive story has been buried by the mainstream media. This information can now be found right on the government's website. If Social Security that we as taxpayers have paid into our entire lives is broke, then why are we expending benefits to those who are not citizens and not here legally? This was a Facebook post that's been fact checked as false. That's false. Okay. Medicare. You all can look that up. Some fact checking on Medicare. Um, let's see, PolitiFact. Again, which speaks to immigration. Trump stated April 2nd, 2024 in a speech, crime is down in Venezuela by 67% because they're taking their gangs and their criminals and depositing them very nicely into the United States. That is false. This is PolitiFact. Um, Let's see, what else we got here? I want to just, there are lots of things that are not true, but I want to kind of keep it centered on welfare, Social Security. Okay, he said March 16th, 2024, in a rally in Vandalia, Ohio. Your Social Security will be destroyed by the people coming in. There's too many of them. It's not sustainable. This is false. On March 9th, 2024, in a speech, Trump says Biden has implemented a formal policy that illegal aliens who intrude into the United States are granted immunity from deportation. That is false. He stated on March 9th, 2024, in a rally in Rome, Georgia, he said, in February alone, nearly 1 million jobs held by native-born Americans disappeared. That is false. And I think this is very, very key because he's starting to um, do a lot of making a lot of claims that the elections are rigged. Well, according to PolitiFact, his claim that 82% of the country understands that the 2020 election was a rigged election, that's false. It's just so many untruths here. So many untruths. I'm not even going to talk about the classified documents. That's not even a part of it. Oh, here you go. I'm going to say this one and then I'm going to stop. Democrats, this is what Trump said. Democrats, quote, use COVID to cheat, end quote, in the 2020 election. Pants on fire. That means liar, liar, pants on fire. That is, okay, one more. Stated January 11th, 2024 in a campaign ad. Haley, now this he's talking about Haley. Haley's plan cut Social Security benefits for 82% of Americans. That was false. Nikki Haley. Okay. So, okay, I'll say this one and then I promise you I'm done. Stated on January 5th, 2024, in a speech, Trump says that's why they are allowing these people to come in, people that don't speak our language. They are signing them up to vote. Another pants on fire. Liar, liar, pants on fire. Okay, I'm looking at some of my things I have open to see if I have talked about everything I intended to. Yes, I have. I haven't skipped over anything. I had gone back to USA Today, which was what I referenced in my education episode. It said some things that I wanted to make sure were in Agenda 47. And yeah, yeah, their claims have been correct. Their claims have been correct. So anyway, yeah, I just wanted to talk about it. I know this is a little different than the approach that I've had with my other episodes where I've actually read a lot of Agenda 47. Again, the reason I did not this time is because Donald Trump's ideology, his approach to governing is sprinkled all through this document. What informs it is Project 2025, but also what informs it is what he has said out of his own mouth when talking to the news, when out on the campaign trail. He has said some things that truly inform how he plans on approaching Agenda 47. And again, him saying that he's distanced himself from Project 2025 doesn't change the fact that he has rehired some of the authors who've given input to this agenda. He's hired them back to help run his campaign. These are people that he is in contact with. These are people who once made up his administration. These are people who have funded him and whom he has helped. So because he's done certain things right out of Project 2025's playbook, he doesn't have to know all of it to be aware that this was being put together to help solidify the absolute power that he wants to hold as president of the United States. And certain things that are happening in different states, in different government agencies, come right out of that playbook. So for you to say that you didn't know nothing about it, but yet you're implementing things that come out of the playbook, no. And fact check is starting to say, well, he said, or well, he has distanced himself, even though the Democrats keep associating him with it. He has distanced himself. That doesn't mean he doesn't intend to do it. It does not mean that it had not already begun. It doesn't change the fact that that is his approach. If it's going to solidify his power and allow him to have things the way he wants to have them, he's for it. And again, with the immunity that the Supreme Court has granted him, he would not have any checks and balances, or in the immortal words of VP Kamala Harris, no guardrails. Maybe that's not a concern to you, but if you really do like living in a democracy, it should concern you that he wants to have absolute power. What happens if you disagree with something? You'll suffer like the rest of us. Even with some things that, even with agreeing with him, some of the things he wants to roll back, you're going to suffer. And that's why I encourage people to truly take a step back, to do their research, and to really think about what's the consequences of this. Is this going to affect me, my family? How is this going to be in America? That's all I'm saying. Well, that's it. If you're finding what I'm sharing helpful, I ask you to like, share, and subscribe. Feel free to put your comments in the comments section. The only thing that I ask you is that you do it in a respectful way and no one-liners. If there's something that you want to talk about, if you have a different perspective, I ask you to lay it out in a real, thought-provoking way, and not just a whole lot of spinning of conspiracy theories and propaganda without any facts to support it. Okay? That's what I'm asking. I want this to be a discussion, not just a whole lot of trolls throwing stuff at this page. Because if you're just throwing stuff at the page, but can't argue intelligently your backing of something, then guess what? We're not having a discussion, right? So I'm going to get off this because I can hear the TV downstairs. My husband has turned the TV up, and I don't want that bleeding into this. So I'm getting ready to go. And until the next episode, bye.